Do you believe that there is a vibrational version of what you want that has progressed in varying degrees, some of it ripe and ready for you to experience? So if the answer to that is yes, then you really are ready for what we are encouraging in a very powerful way these days. You're ready to deliberately put yourself into the receiving mode where you can receive the impulses about it. And this is different than bridging beliefs, because bridging beliefs takes time. Bridging beliefs means you have to take hold of a belief that you've got that is in defiance of something that you want and make it no longer in defiance of something that you want. Have you ever talked to anyone? You believe one thing and they believe another thing, and you're talking to each other and you both wish to convince the other. And after an hour or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 10 or 20 or years of interacting with them about that, they just stand strong in what they believe and you just stand strong in what you believe, and no headway is made in convincing the other. You know about that? You've got that exact thing going on inside of you, where I want this, but I want this, but you've got beliefs that keep your desires from being realized by you, and it's unnecessary. So what do you do about it? Do you want to argue with yourself for hours or weeks or months or years? Or would you like a suggestion for a much simpler route? Yes. We thought you'd say that. When you quiet your mind, you stop all thought. And when you stop all thought, all beliefs, ooh, you're really going to like this. So we're going to start in a different place because we really want you to hear this. Imagine a cork floating on the water. And let's just say that this up here on this surface is alignment with your source, pure positive energy. Now you can hold that cork under the water, and let's call that negative emotion. Let's call that beliefs that don't serve you. But when you let go of it, it's going to bob right back up there to the surface. So when you meditate and you quiet your mind, you bob back up to the surface. And when you bob back up to the surface, when your vibration rises because you're not holding it down with things that your inner being knows are not true, when hatred and fear are disengaged, and in their absence, you just move right back up into the natural love and pure positive energy that is you. That's what we call the receiving mode, which means now you are at the doorway of your vortex. Now, in that absence of contradictory beliefs, the beliefs of your inner being are dominant. In fact, they are only. When you meditate and quiet your mind and allow your vibration to rise, now you are only the frequency of your inner being. Now think about what we've been talking about already here today. So here's your inner being and this vibration, and here's you and this vibration, and everything you feel is about the mix of that. If you are in tune with your inner being, you feel wonderful. If you're not, you feel less wonderful to varying degrees, all the way over to awful. But when you meditate and quiet that part of your vibration, and your vibration rises, now you are at the doorway of your vortex. Now you are in the receiving mode. Now what your inner being knows about everything, and what your inner being knows mostly about is you, now it is your knowledge too. And so now ideas begin to flow to you through your path of least resistance. So when you are in meditation and a thought comes to you, that thought is a thought worth listening to, because it's not from this receptive mode of fear. It's from this receptive mode of knowing who you are, what you want, what's in your vortex, what's already been allowed by you to play out. Your inner being knows where you stand in relationship to everything you want, and knows your path of least resistance to guide you to it. Isn't that nice? So you're at the doorway of your vortex, and you might not be ready yet to translate into words like Esther is doing here, but you'll receive impulses, maybe an impulse to do something or an impulse to call someone. But then you're going to get back into your day. And as you get back into your day and you start observing what's going on in your day, you're probably going to reintroduce more resistance back into your experience. So The closer to meditation, the more likely you are to more clearly receive the answers that you've been listening for. The further into the day you get, the more you're going to start behaving like you usually do. But can you feel how, after a few days of this, or weeks of this, or even years of this, where you quiet your mind and tune to the frequency of who you are, that you could become more guided by that broader perspective? Esther's been asking herself a lot. Now, she's been receiving us since 1985. That's a long time. And yet, even today, she will ask herself as a thought comes, because your receiver is always on, isn't it? As a thought comes, she will ask herself, where did that thought come from? Now, if the television's on, it's pretty obvious where the thought came from. But when she's just taking her walk, or when she's in the shower, or when she's moving about in her day, and thoughts come as they do all day, she's been stopping and saying, where's that thought coming from? What receiving mode am I in? What train of thought led to that? Was I in the receiving mode of worrying about things, or was I in the receiving mode of appreciating things? And in time, you will come to realize that you have a very broad view helping you out. Some years ago, Jerry and Esther were in San Antonio. They live outside the city limits. And they'd gone into Bernie, the little town where they pick up their mail. And they couldn't get to the post office because there was a flood. The Cibolo Creek had overrun its banks, and the post office was flooded. They couldn't get in. And so they went home, and they immediately called their friends who live in San Antonio, which is downstream. And they own a ranch in San Antonio, 1,000 acres, and that Cibolo Creek runs right through their ranch. And Esther called and said, the Cibolo Creek is out of its banks up here. The post office is blocked off. We couldn't even get in, and it's headed your way. And so their friends were able to get the tractors out of the pastures and move the cattle and the horses out of the pasture. And as the creek made its way there in the next half hour or so, everything went well for them. And then Pat called and said, it sure is nice to have a friend upstream. And that really is the point that we want to make with you. You have infinite intelligence adoring you and upstream and aware of you and everything that is important to you. Esther has a friend, he's a minister, and he said, I've prayed to God all my life, and it seems like whenever I pray, he's out to lunch. Well, we want you to know that that is never true. It's just sometimes you're not in the receiving mode, and you cannot hear. You can't receive the impulse that will lead to this, which will lead to this, which will lead to this, which, by the way, is the happily ever after journey that we keep talking about. So there. Now you know, and we know that you know, we can feel that you accept that there is this vibrational reality. And now perhaps you have a different relationship with that vibrational reality than you've had before. And now perhaps you'll be listening more for that. And now perhaps you'll do it the easy way, which is meditate every day for 15 or 20 minutes and quiet your mind so that you get better and better at feeling those impulses. And then one more thing we want to say to you, and then we want to talk to you about whatever. Right now, these words may just be words to you. Somebody who seems very sure of themselves is offering you a very convincing argument that you create your own reality and that you offer a vibration and that what you offer comes back to you. And that's pretty much the end of the story about what's going on in your life. Everything that comes back to you is because of the output, and to one degree or another that you're controlling that output. So maybe it just sounds like so many words, and maybe that's the way you'll leave this room hearing it. Someone pretty sure of themselves gave us a pretty convincing conversation about how we can have more control of our life experience. But what we know for sure is that when you take 15 or 20 minutes for just a few days, at the beginning of the day is best, and you focus on something in the room that doesn't require much thought, something that's not very interesting, like the sound of the air conditioner. Hear it? It's a really good thing to focus on because it's not interesting, but you can train your mind on it. So when you focus on something that's not that interesting, and sometimes you have to go again and again and again, focus back there again, focus back there again, but you'll get good at it. And once you quiet your mind, then you can begin to receive thoughts or a thought. Might be the last 2 minutes of your meditation. You get an impulse to call someone or an impulse to do something. But here's our point. When you know you've quieted your mind, and you know it because you felt that detachment, And then out of the clear blue, out of the clarity blue, you receive an idea or an impulse, and you follow through with that impulse. And then you see the powerful, productive results of that. Then and only then will anything that we've said here to you have any real meaning, because words don't teach. You have to show yourself what the receptive mode is. You have to show yourself that you have the ability to tune into it. And then you have to receive some stuff and notice how it plays out in your life. Otherwise, it's just our words, and our words don't mean anything. It's only your life experience that gives you true knowing, you see. So once you show yourself that you can get into the receiving mode, and once you receive something, then you will come to trust. Then you will come to want to go there on a regular basis, to want to quiet your mind on a regular basis, to want to put unhelpful beliefs at bay for a little while, so that the beliefs that are truly at the center and core of who you are can come to the surface of who you are and play a more dominant role in your experience. Esther has been saying to herself, it's attraction, 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 attraction. It's attraction, it's attraction, it's only attraction. It's attraction, it's attraction, it's attraction, it's attraction, it's attraction, it's attraction. It's attraction. It's only attraction. It's attraction. It's not assertion. No one's doing anything to her. Nobody is doing anything to her. Nobody's making good for her. Nobody's making bad for her. It's attraction. It's attraction. It's attraction. It's attraction. It's attraction. It's attraction. She got on the airplane yesterday. Every week we have another airplane story for you. Last week she got on an airplane, and Esther really likes the aisle. She likes the freedom of it. She likes to be able to get up if she needs to. So she's very clear about doing that. And a couple came on and said, there are two of us, and would you mind giving up your seat and taking our seat, which was a window seat? And Esther thought, it won't kill me. So she gave up her seat. And then the man who was sitting next to her was sleeping so soundly she didn't want to wake him up. So she suffered not going to the bathroom for an hour. And she said to herself, probably not going to do that again. Probably going to keep the aisle seat, which is more comfortable to me. So she got on the airplane, and the nice man was sitting in her seat. And she said, excuse me, I think you're sitting in my seat. And he said, no, this is my seat. And she said, well, the picture of the window is by your seat, and the picture of the person is by my seat. So yours is the window seat. And he said, all right. So he moved over, and Esther felt bad. She thought, would it have killed me to sit over there? Should I yield to his preference? Would it have been nice for me? And then she thought, last week, remember, it wasn't fun. And so she sat in that seat unresolved. You kind of get what we're talking about. Mad at herself, hadn't quite found the balance. She looked at him. He was really nice. And she thought, I'm so bad. And then the two people sitting in front, two men who did not know each other, one of them had placed a big cup of frothy cappuccino from Starbucks on the seat, and he knocked it with his elbow. It fell back to where Esther and her new friend were sitting, hit the floor, and splattered all over their legs and shoes and bags. And Esther thought, that's about right. Because when you're bad, you deserve immediate punishment. And so she asked the flight attendant for some things. And this man was not the most agile of people. And so she said, you just sit there, and I'll just wipe you down. So she wiped off his shoes, and she wiped off his leg, and she wiped off his briefcase, and then she wiped off her shoes and her leg and her briefcase, and then she made a little pile and cleaned it all up, and she thought, it's attraction, it's attraction, it's attraction, it's attraction, it's attraction, it's attraction. The man in front was mortified. He could not believe that he had done that to them. And he said, I am so sorry. And Esther said, it's attraction. And he said, what? Esther said, it's a long story, but it's not your fault. And then the man sitting next to her looked at her like, you're a crazy woman. And Esther somehow felt wiser for the experience. It's never other than attraction. It's attraction. It's attraction.